Ghana's territory. There is Tandi. Which other leopards are around? Female leopards that I can think of now. There was Karula, obviously. Pardon? Well, Shungile, but we think that she's probably his offspring. But yeah, she's definitely around too, that young female leopard. Some hyena tracks around here from last night, it looks like it. Excuse me. It's a bit chilly today, this morning. Just having a look at what tracks you can see along here, and all hyena tracks that moved along this road during the course of the evening. So hyenas move around a lot, and they will go and scavenge and look for food. I'm just trying to listen. Seb, have you heard anything from Megan?
Not in a while.
Ah, there's Megan. Katie, you asked if female leopards would scent mark their territory. Yes, indeed, they will. They do, just like males do. The female leopards will go around and they scent mark and they mark their territory too. As I said, sometimes the female territories may overlap slightly. Same with males, maybe at prominent water holes. There is a chance of that happening. And I've actually witnessed two females go and mate with a single male at the same time. Two different females, and the one female would present herself and go and brush up against the male. Male would mate with her, he'd go move off, and as he'd move off a little bit, the other female would come and he'd have to mate with her. Look like a little shagra over here. Yeah, we've got those. We've got the shagras. I'm trying to look for a chin spot batis to add to the list. Now, it sounds like my friend James has had quite a long night out in the Mara, but he's still moving around. He's left the lions now. I wonder if James managed to mend his shirt.
Yeah. Did not manage to mend my shirt, everybody. It is still the same as it was. We've just been driving around attempting to see what everyone else is looking at and can't find anything else. We've got an impala there, and then away on the termite mound beyond, of course, are two flat kitties. And I'm afraid they're much further away from the impala than they look. Although they could easily find the impala stumbling upon them. Anyway, that's the story here. And then there's a gorgeous sort of spotlight coming down from the heavens, shining down on the Mara, leaving us with, although we're feeling a little heavy-eyed after our evening, we certainly are in the presence of a magnificent wilderness. There we go. Marvellous. Okay, I think we're going to carry on from here. And we'll get one last look at those lions. There also seems to be quite a lot of activity heading back towards where we had the lions killing the hippo earlier. I don't know what's going on there. Perhaps we'll find out as we go. Jumbo. He's a cheetah researcher. Not with cheetah right now. I'm just trying to assess how close these impala actually are to the lions. In the meantime, however, let's go across to Scott, who I'm still trying to find out from what happened in that bush.
Sadly, nothing happened in the second bush, as you guys saw. This guy just brushed past the third bush, from which there was no... They certainly are paying quite a lot of interest to them, which is interesting. I think there could be warthog homes within them. And this is absolutely beautiful. The sun's come out at the perfect time to illuminate these glorious beasts as they patrol what is an incredible, incredible home that they have. Certainly one of the most beautiful wilderness areas I have ever worked in Africa. It is quite picturesque. What we've noticed is the male that you can see now is considerably larger than the other male. It's difficult to see now because they're not side by side, but when they are, you can clearly see that the second one is, like I say, considerably larger. Now, I wonder if that means they are cousins, not brothers, born at slightly different times, so one's maybe got a head start, or if possibly just genetically one is a bigger brother than another, which is also possible. Is this their sister? Could be. Maybe that's why she's ditched the other ladies and happy to roll with them. But it'll be tricky for us to get to the bottom of that. All those questions that I've just opened to the floor. I just thought they were going to fall down and go to sleep where they were. And we were thinking about going back towards those 4 lionesses, but thankfully we didn't, because my goal is to try and stay with them until they do become stationary for the day. No guarantees that they will not move during the day, but it would be nice if they don't, so that Taylor can head out here this afternoon. Our current plan is that Taylor will do the afternoon drive and then continue after dark until midnight, where myself and Manu will come and take over all night until the morning show. So those are our plans at the moment, to try and have 24-hour, or just about 24-hour surveillance with these big cats, in the hope that by investing a lot of time with them, we will get to see some action. And I mean, last night we got very lucky. We stumbled upon 2 lionesses that provided us with some great entertainment. But what would be ideal is if we have a secured sighting for her to come to. And these lions are moving in an area that suits us perfectly. We can off-road here. There's no other vehicles here. And we've got good signal. So all the correct ingredients to make a very, very tasty safari cake. Hello, Shamsan. You would like to know if a warthog could do damage to a lion? And yes, certainly it could. They've got very sharp tusks that protrude from their bottom jaw. They're not the big curly ones that you notice easily. They are small, dagger-like, sharp tusks that occlude against those upper tusks every time the pig nibbles on some nibbles. And yes, warthog can slice open a lion, a leopard, a cheetah, anything that wrangles with it. And female warthog are well known to actually stand up for their youngsters, especially against cheetah and leopard. I remember once in the Sabi Sands seeing a leopard in the road, and about 200 meters down the road we came across some warthog, and I noticed the one piglet literally had blood trickling down its neck. I mean, it was like fresh. It wasn't a blood stain. There was droplets of blood dripping off it. And let's have a look here. This lioness is showing some interest in the zebra up ahead, but I think the boys leading up front have already been spotted by the zebra. There's a few zebra just to the right of where you are now, Manu. Yeah, those 2. those guys, I think, have spotted the males. So regardless of what this female is thinking, she's probably going to have little or no chance of catching them. As I was saying, what obviously happened was that the leopard must have caught one of the piglets, and mother pig must have come to the rescue, chased the leopard off, and the piglet just had a few little wounds. So, interesting. Whoop. Julie, I think you're asking why do the females not feed first if they're the ones that make the kills? And it's quite simple, size matters. Archer, there's not much gentlemanly behavior in the animal kingdom, and the men often treat the women not very well, and men will even treat one another the same. The biggest and the strongest get to do what they like. And it's the same with intra-species, so lion on lion, and the same goes for lion against leopard and or hyena. They will bully animals that are smaller and weaker than them. So that is just one of the ways of the wild. Ooh, we may have our work cut out for ourselves here. There's a little lugger, as you can see over there, and we are going to have to try and find a way across it, which shall be interesting. While we do that, we shall be sending you across to Byron, down south in the land of the Sabi sands.
Follow the main stem all the way about a meter from the top. Now, everyone who wondering about our bird list, there it goes. Come on, we need that one. Sit, please. It's a chin spot batis. It's one we need. Hold on, yeah, let's see. Maybe we can get it. There's a few chin spot batis flying around. Here goes another one. They're in here. They're in here somewhere. Oh, and an orange-breasted bushrock. Where is that? We need that. Where is it? It's in this tree somewhere. That's the long-billed crombeck. We've got that one. Thanks, Seb. That's a long-billed crombeck. Where's that orange-breasted bushrock? That's also a little crombeck, yeah. And the chin spot batis, they're up here. There they are. Just to the in this tree, Seb, at the tall one at the back. There they're flying. Oh. Yeah. I wonder where that orange-breasted bush shrike is. That would be a great one to add. We can get to 80. There are 2 birds here that we need. Might get those chin spot batis. There they are, right at the top of the tree. There they are, chin spot batis. There we go. Sorry, that's a brew. That's a brew, everyone. The chin spot batis is also there, but that one is a brew. Those are 2 brews. We don't have that on the list. Wonderful, but where's that little batis? Just to the right, Seb, it is up there. No, sorry, same spot. There we, no, that's the, is that it? That's the batis. That's the chin spot batis, everyone. There we go. There we got 2. The brew and the chin spot batis. 80 birds on camera. Come on. That's wonderful. Is there something around there? So that's 80 birds for us. There you can see that brew again. There's brown on the wing. You should be able to see it. There we go. You see that little bit of brown? That is the brew. That's a nice view of it. That's great. And then that little batis that also flew around. It was jumping about. It's actually a lovely view of it. Oh no, there it flies. Actually, Seb, we might get a better view of that batis. This thin tree straight ahead of us, about a meter from the top. No, this one, the small little one, sorry.
This one, yeah.
Left? The one to the left, there we go, it's in there. Don't worry, we got it.
My eyes.
It's
Okay.
That's fine, we got it. There's sitting at the bottom there. There he goes. Anyway, well that's nice. So we got to 80 birds. Now, I think it was Shamsan. I saw your tweet you just sent about the bird list that you had. You said you had already got me at 80 birds, but I just scrolled through quickly. I saw you had the two vultures twice, the hooded vulture and the white-backed vulture. I see that you put them down twice, so that would have put me back on 78. But now these two, the chin spot batis and the broo, that's got me up to 80. And then also with the button quail, it wasn't the common button quail, it was the Currichin button quail that I saw. So that's one that you can just maybe change. Some Nyala ahead of us. It just disappeared through the bush there. All right. Well, that was very fortunate of us to get to 80 birds. I'm sure James will be very happy with that. But let's go across to him and find out about last night's action.
Hello everybody, here we have again the Balashaka nomads, or one thereof. The others are around here in the bushes. I can't move from here though because we'll lose signal. This is just a quick update to tell you that the 6 of them failed to kill their hippopotamus despite their efforts, and so here they lie, not very hungry. I think they ate something else last night and took on that hippo almost as a matter of course on their way back to this area. This seems to be their default spot. And there's no hippo carcass here and no blood on any of them, so I think the hippo managed to escape, which is quite nice actually. I didn't really like the sight of them hunting a hippo. Hello Ginger, you say, do the lion researchers do DNA research on the lions that they collar here? Yes, there is some DNA stuff being done. Certainly the Mara Lion project run by a chap called Nick Elliott, who operates not very far from here. They've collected a huge amount of data, the same with the cheetah, and that will help them to establish various things. But to process DNA is not a quick thing these days. It's not quite like in the movies where you sort of take a hair and pop it into a computer and suddenly you've got all the information you've ever needed about the person or animal that you're looking at. It is a lengthy process, and I'm not sure when the results will come out, but I know that they have a very dedicated team. And if you want to know more about the Mara Lion project, I think you just go to maralions.org or maralion.org. Just Google it or look for it on Facebook. They've got a website and a Facebook page, and they all of their published material is pretty much freely available, I think, online. So there is quite a lot of DNA research being done. I think it's the best way to go, I must say. I think that we have, how much wild conjecture we've had about the paternity of various animals around the Sabi sand. And the best possible way to put all of those theories and things to bed is just to do a simple paternity test with DNA, and I think that's exactly, I think we'll get a huge amount of information about who's related to whom. Are these chaps from the same litter? Are they from completely different prides? Same with those cheetah, the 5 males. We'll be able to tell. At the moment they think they've got 3 different parents, but they're not sure. And so it's the simplest way to find out what's going on. Although it's quite difficult to gather DNA, obviously, and it's not particularly cheap to do the testing. But it would be very interesting to have a full DNA database of all of the sort of threatened species in the area, not just the predators, but all the threatened species, all the rhino, all the elephants if possible. I think that would be very difficult. And certainly all the cheetah and lions and leopards. And I imagine, eventually, when technology gets sufficiently advanced, I think the option of a subcutaneous chip that has a sort of battery that'll last a couple of years at a time, I think that's definitely going to become an option for researchers, rather than these collars. And yes, I think eventually what will happen is that each of those things will give a GPS reading, and we'll pretty much know exactly where the animals are. We'll be able to sort of load up a tablet computer with a map, and we'll know exactly where all of the characters we like are sitting. And while that will take a little bit of the romance out of it, it will also allow us to much more accurately monitor and look after the animals as they become more and more pressed by the expansion of humanity and our totally insatiable sort of greed for the earth and her resources. You see, he agrees with me. Yes. Of course, by then, old fellow, you'll have a big, thick, fat mane, and you'll only be thinking about your territory and the ladies therein. Now, Scott apparently was describing a young male lion as dashing. I've got to tell you, a male lion like this, to me, just looks like a gangly teenager. He doesn't look like a big black-maned sort of terror, the likes of which sort of Scar or Sikio or Hunter or the Triangle Boys or the Kitratembo males. All of them magnificent lions, and he will become a magnificent lion, of course. But at the moment he's just got that sort of scraggly teenager beard. I'm afraid I didn't get that, Rebecca. All I got was, I walk in the rain. That's an interesting question. I walk in the rain. You want to know, do they fight less than a Djuma? They seem to have less facial scars. These chaps do, absolutely. They've got no facial scarring at all. But a few days ago, we saw a male lion who had just eaten a wildebeest, or just killed a wildebeest. He looked like he'd been run over by a combine harvester. And he was big. He was much bigger than this. And so I don't think they fight less. No, in fact, I think they probably potentially fight more. But these chaps have come into this area at the right time. And I think that the territory of the Musketeer boys, those 4 chaps who dominated possibly this far north, maybe not, this may have been the Triangle Boy sort of domain, but I think it's not full, this particular area, the Bilashaka area, of a male lion coalition of adult males. And I think they've come into an area here that is, that they're not really having to challenge for hugely. Now, as I'm sitting here, this chap's looked up towards a big warthog and some zebra and not a wildebeest, a buffalo. David, you want to know what's bigger, the Mara or the Serengeti? The Serengeti is roughly, let me work it out for you. The Serengeti is about 15 times the size of the Mara. It's much, much bigger. This is just the northern section. The Masai Mara is the northern section of the Serengeti Mara ecosystem. And the entire area is about 2.5 million hectares, of which this area is only about 150,000. So you can do the maths if mine has been incorrect. That's not to say that it's any less diverse than the rest of the areas. In fact, I think it could be even more diverse. Certainly this river gives it a diversity that I've seldom seen before. Yeah, the lions are not looking particularly interested in hunting, and that's I mean, there is potential prey behind us. There are some zebra, there's some buffalo, warthog. But I think they ate something before they attacked that hippo last night. David, there's some nice bones over there. It'd be quite good to put them in the studio. Look over there. Giraffe. Very nice. And there are the buffalo. Completely relaxed, not worried in the slightest about these Bilashaka nomads. Okay, our plan from here is going to be to go towards that marshy area we began in yesterday and see if we can't pick up on those 2 cheetah. Are we able to move, Rebecca? Oh, hang on. Male line's up. But he's got a big belly on him. While I'm sitting here, somebody asked the other day, why do they have hairy elbows? And I said I didn't know. And then there was a debate on Twitter, which I was mercifully included in. And it seems that the hair there perhaps reduces friction. And indeed it may do so on human beings too, under the armpit. Which is quite important if your arms are pumping up and down all the time, if you're walking or running. There we go, the Bilashaka nomad seems to have gone to sleep. Rebecca, are you still with us? Here we are. Alright, now Byron is doing an extremely good job down in South Africa. He seems to have managed to find yet another bird species. By my reckoning, he has 19 avians to go.
Okay, look everyone, a southern boo-boo. First time I've seen one on camera, or got it on camera. And Seb, quickly at the top here, orange-breasted bushshrike, still sitting there. Orange-breasted bushshrike, everyone, look at that. That is such a beautiful view of it. There it goes. A very secretive bird. How's that? 82. That's such a lovely view. Well done, well done. But I'm so excited about that southern boo-boo. And I think it just flew off. Yeah. And it called for us and everything. So it was a lovely view. But that orange-breasted bushshrike was also calling. And I just sat here waiting. Poured myself a cup of coffee, and it paid off. So I'm very excited now. Shame, I need to let Taylor know, because Taylor's been waiting, she said, for ages to see a southern boo-boo and try and get it on camera.
Do you have one of those parrots?
Brown-headed parrot. I do, but that's a lovely view of one though. Seb, if we can get it. There's a lovely view of the brown-headed parrot. I'm sure I do have it on the list though. I'll double check quickly. Lovely. Yeah, we have got it on, but that's a beautiful view of one. You see, just parking and sitting and waiting. We get to see so many more birds. So I think Taylor's going to be quite jealous about that southern boo-boo. And let me just show you a picture of one quickly. All the birds are very active at the moment. There we go. How's that, Seb? Can you get that there? That's the southern boo-boo. And we could see a bit of that rufous on the rump, very white, pale neck and chest, but clearly a southern boo-boo. And that's how you spell it. And then the orange-breasted bush shrike. Let me get that for you quickly, but that was a great view of that one. I got to see those colours beautifully. There we go. We got to see that bright orange breast. chest area, bit of yellow and grey on the head. And that's a calling. Listen, everyone, hold on. It just stopped. That's not fair. So does that. Sounds exactly like that, actually. There's just something else. What is that? That's the puffback. We got the puffback. And then I think there was just some confusion I heard about the button quail that we saw. So I'm just going to quickly show you again which one it was. It was the Karachani button quail. And that was it, not the common quail. I'll show you what the common quail looks like. But we saw the Karachan button quail. That's the name, there we go. Karachani, Caracane, some people pronounce it Karachan. I say Karachan. Button quail, and then the common quail, I'll show you quickly. It's a bit different. It's a bit darker. Darker markings around the head and that. Slightly different. They look quite similar, but we definitely saw the Karachan button quail. So we didn't see the common quail. It was the button quail that we saw. So there's a bit of confusion, I know, but that should sort it out now. So we're on, what was it, 82, Megan? 82 birds. I'm happy with 82. This coffee's tasting a lot better all of a sudden. I think let's go across to Scott, who's apparently got some new lions and lionesses. Let's go find out.
Yes, this is a new old lioness from earlier this morning. So this is one of the 4 ladies that decided to stay behind and not follow the 2 boys, the big male and the lonely lady. That's 1. That's 2. 3 I can see as well. She's just in this closer bush to Asmanu with her head poking out on the right-hand side. There we go. That's number 3. Number 4, I'm not sure where she is, but I don't want to get too close. And the reason being is that these lion are not entirely habituated to vehicles. And isn't that so refreshing to know that there's lions living out here that simply don't get to see many humans, so they're a little bit cautious of us. When we drove into the sighting, we were probably 100 meters away, and the one lioness stood up and looked at us, which, is unheard of in some wilderness areas. And often you can drive into sightings and lions won't even open their eyes, let alone acknowledge that you're there, even though you may be driving just a few meters away from them. So I'm not sure where this pride originated from, but there are some massive open blocks in this area and just huge expanses of wilderness where people don't spend too much time. So you could find that maybe when these lions were young growing up, they didn't have much exposure to vehicles and therefore don't entirely trust us. Ah, another predator. Now, I heard you were discussing how to say the Kurishani shashi thrush, not thrush, quail, possibly the thrush. Interestingly, Kenyan people pronounce a kukal. Well, it's not that interesting. Maybe it's just interesting for me. Quite a few Kenyans came to school down in South Africa where I went, and there was a permanent discussion whether it was a kukal, as us South Africans would say it, or a kukal, as the Kenyans would say it. The Kenyans would also say hadada instead of a hadida, ibis, which is quite an interesting one. Or maybe it was just my friends. Either way, this bird's made a good move and decided to get out of here before we called it the wrong name. Phew, it is heating up. I shall be peeling off another layer. I had 3 layers on last night, plus the kikoi scarf. Now I'm down to 1. I even had my buttons up, but I'll be rolling those up now shortly. There we go. To get comfortable for the last hour of the safari. I'm not a fan of long sleeves, unless it's cold, of course. Even at weddings and fancy dress occasions, it bothers me having these buttons done. And the worst is when you try and climb into the clothes and the button's been done up and then you get stuck at the top. Oops, I forgot my sunnies on. I'm making lots of mistakes this morning. Forgive me, it's been a long night. Manu and I, for those of you who have just joined the safari, have been up since, or out since 11 o'clock. We took over from Taylor and VM at about 11:30. And we drove about 60 kilometers before we found anything. It was quite a bleak start, but jeez, we have been spoiled since then. Bye-bye, ladies. Taylor will be coming to spend time with you this afternoon. Please show her lots of action. Alrighty then. So we're slowly going to start meandering home. There was reports of a leopard, could you believe it, not too far from where we found these lions on the road. So with a little bit of luck, I'll be able to show you our first, or my first, Mara leopard. That'll be exciting. But in the meantime, you guys are heading down to one of the river cams, and Stefan will be talking you through it.
Well, if there's one person that is going to be finding you leopard this morning, it is going to be Scott Dyson. He definitely enjoys that type of competition, him and Brent, ideally. Well, yes, my name is Steph, and I'm manning the river cams again this morning. And right off the bat, we've got a huge bull buffalo. I think this was the same guy that was on the rivers yesterday, or late yesterday afternoon. He's just made his way upstream and is now looking for some tasty grass on the edge of the bank here. Isn't that nice? Now, what I'd like to do is go to cul-de-sac crossing and let's go and see what has happened to that wildebeest carcass from last night. So cul-de-sac is quite an epic crossing that's got a wide body of water, and yesterday in the center of the screen there was a wildebeest that had beached itself there with a lot of crocodile attention. And I can see now already that the wildebeest has managed to unbeach itself. There are no crocodiles around, just this one large crocodile swimming in the water towards us upstream. And what's happened is overnight, the activity around that carcass, either from hippo or from crocodile, has caused the wildebeest to come unstuck, and the force of the water has dragged it downstream to another place. And obviously that is how nutrients is spread throughout this river system, and that missed opportunities for crocodiles in one pool doesn't necessarily mean that crocodiles elsewhere will go hungry. Just have a look at this ginormous crocodile busy floating upstream. You quite often see these crocodiles, just floating upriver. I am convinced that they have sensory organelle very similar to sharks on the point of their nose, because they almost always swim like you're seeing them now, and just below their nostrils at the point of their snout, they've got these pits in their skull, and the two pits in particular are very, very prominent, and I think that they can pick up electrochemical signatures in the water that way. Janice, you wanted to know if there are fish in the water? Most definitely, Janice, there are fish in the water. There is almost certainly a very healthy population of catfish, the sharp-toothed catfish, an introduced species into Africa, but one that has been naturalized over the last couple of years, and that is what would form the major portion of these crocodiles' diets. There's also tilapia, there's a bunch of different fish. To be honest with you, my fish knowledge, apart from the most common fish, is very poor. But you definitely see fishing birds fishing out little fish, and that is what crocodile, a healthy population of crocodile, is dependent on fish, not just the large mammals that you see these crocodiles eat and what we here to film. There you can see this crocodile pushing his snout up into the water. Let's see if we can see those two pits using this fantastic camera that we have. I'll see if I can show you those two pits. So just below the point of the snout, there you go. You can just see one sticking out now. You can see them just surfing on the surface of the water. And quite often you'll see a crocodile with his snout just out. Letting the water rush over those two pits. I mean, obviously, the most obvious answer would be, but he's using, he's got his head up because he wants to breathe, and that's where his nostrils are. And I must say, I agree with you 100%, except for the fact that crocodiles can hold their breath for up to 45 minutes, and he doesn't need to breathe. He needs to eat. Well, you say that. He doesn't. That's a wrong statement. He definitely needs to breathe more than he needs to eat. Isn't that amazing? Good. But what I'm going to be doing is, let's zoom out so I can show you what this crossing is all about. Oh, there's a giraffe. Gee whiz. Hello there. Now what is amazing is not only are giraffes incredible to look at when they drink, but we saw the other day, we saw some giraffe crossing this river, and it was just the most amazing thing. I mean, giraffe obviously cross rivers, but I've never seen them do that before. And this giraffe seems like he's snuck in while we were busy having a look at this crocodile and come for a drink and is now leaving. This is a bull giraffe. I can tell that because the top of his horns have that sheen to it. There is no hair on the top of a bull giraffe's horns, and it's almost deformed, the skull. You can see there, as I zoom in, you'll see that there's growths that develop on a giraffe's skull, and that is because giraffes use their skulls. There we go, that's a beautiful picture of those bony protrusions. The two longest ones are called ossicones, or type of horn. There's on every bare patch of bone on that skull, the giraffe will develop a little knob of bones. You can see there's two smaller ones behind that, across and on top of the eyelids, quite often on the jawbone. And this big bull Maasai giraffe is just standing by. Quite dangerous for them on the banks of the river. They're always wary of lions, but he's now walking away. And now talking about walking, there are some animals that Scott has that are on the march. We'll carry on looking at these river cameras and catch up with you in a little bit.
Well, certainly one of the cutest things to see is a little elephant marching along with its mother, of course, leading closely in front of it. They have incredible bonds with their mothers and aunts, I guess, siblings. Let's move forward a bit. And I really do love the way that young elephants do stay so close to their mother. And sometimes, like most young people, they may get distracted, or like most young animals. And next thing they know, they realize they've created a bit of distance between themselves and their mother. And then they go charging off in order to catch up in a slight state of panic. Where shall we stop? Beautiful. Hello to Tim. You would like to know if I think that we anthropomorphize, bit of a mouthful for me, too much with wild animals. Yes and no, each unto their own, and some people really enjoy doing that and others less so. I'm kind of indifferent, whatever floats your boat, as long as your interests are in the best concerns, or whatever your thoughts or movements are or actions are in the best interests of the animals. And I don't think they care too much about how we think about them, but more about how we treat them and conserve their habitats. So, yes and no. For me, personally. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but all of these ladies seem to have very, very bushy tails. And I don't know if it's just I haven't been focusing enough on the elephant's tails here, but that is a bushy tail. And Bex has just pointed out that it looks like they've got spindly spines, and they do look like they've got fairly spindly spines, this bunch. Maybe it's because of the drought that Kenya is facing, and even though there is lush vegetation here, there's not as much as there usually would be, and who knows how far these elephants have traveled to get you. Maybe they've come from a very dry area with not too much food. But their spines do stick out. I guess a lot will depend on the light and the angle. I think this angle and the sunlight is kind of accentuating their spiny spines. Please, can they shake this tree? If we're lucky, they have done it a bit since I've been here. I saw one doing it a few days ago, actually. There are some fruits on this date tree, and they sometimes kind of bang their head against the trunk in order to dislodge the fruits. It's one of my favorite things to watch elephants do. Hello to Mita, who's just 8 years old. You would like to know a very interesting question, and that is, what would I ask elephants if I could ask them any question? And, whew, that is a good question, Mita. I guess I would like to ask them maybe how far they've come from, because they don't live in territories like the lions we've been watching. They can move huge distances. So it would be very, very interesting to know how far these elephants have been from here. It could have been hundreds and hundreds of miles away. And I guess after I ask them that question, I'd ask them which is their favorite place they've seen so far. And what's important to also know is that elephants live for a very long time. They can live for about 60 years. So imagine all of the stories they could tell us about the places they go to and see, the lions they've chased off unceremoniously from wherever they've been hiding. I think elephants would have lots and lots of interesting stories for us. So it's an animal that I think you could sit down and have a long conversation with, if only they understood us. What would you ask them? I'd love to know what you would ask them. Please let me know. I'll elephant for you, and I'll ask them if you just let me know what question you would like to ask them. So think about that, and please tell me, because I'm desperate to know. And I'll be waiting here with these elephants so I can try and speak elephant to them once I know what I need to ask them from you. And we're going to send you back down to the river cams.
No, not the river cams. The river, yeah. No, here we are. We've got some crocodilos over there, all basking on the bank. And I've said to you on more than one occasion, you know, crocodiles of different sizes don't live together because the bigger ones will eat the littler ones. As you can see, I lied. I didn't mean to lie. I thought I'd read that somewhere. In fact, I'm pretty sure I did. But anyway, there we have a very large crocodile in the middle and a very small bunch on the outside. Well, not very small, but they're much smaller. Then next to a rock. He looks like he's been scolded and sent to the naughty corner. There are a lot of crocodiles as I saw. The sound of Africa, the fish eagle. There are many cliches about Africa, and that is the greatest of them. There are crocodiles all over this place. In fact, there's a crocodile about the same size as that hippo, the little hippo. If you pan to the left, Dave, you got him. No, keep going left, stop, zoom, and you got him there. Well done. Hello Janice, you're wondering about the age that crocodiles can get to. Crocodiles can get to about 5,868 years old. That's absolute rubbish. They can apparently live to just over 100. I'm not sure what the oldest one ever recorded is, but it is over 100. Of course, the oldest, what's the oldest vertebrate in the world is that Greenland shark, which I think is something stupid like 500 years old, or somewhere around that. It's quite astonishing. A shark, at least the crocodile, doesn't live quite that long, but they can live to over 100 years, which in the wild is a very long time. But imagine having been born 500 years ago. You've lived through the Middle Ages, Renaissance, Reformation, the entire history, as sordid as it is, of colonialism, both the French Revolution, American Revolution, American War of Independence. All of those events passed without you noticing as you were knocking about under the ice cap looking for fish to eat. I think they ate fish. David, do you know what a Greenland shark eats? No, I don't either. Mangoes, apparently, says Rebecca. Right, I believe we're going across to Chief Mango Eater in Chief at the main North Crossing with some massing wildebeest.
Hello there, yes, we have got some massing wildebeest, and isn't it just fantastic? We've actually got wildebeest on two fronts. We've got wildebeest at main north camera, which are these, and we've also got wildebeest at main south camera, and I'm trying to split my my view between both. That is main south camera, which is about half a mile or so that have just scared the wildebeest away from there. Oh, it is very difficult to see where the action is going to take place. This is the first time that we've had crossings on two fronts with you during a show, I think. And it is very, very exciting. I don't quite know. It looks like they're just coming down to drink. Now, wildebeest, you know, coming down to these rivers, it's difficult. This is the only big river in the area. We've got another one called the Sand River and another one called the Talek River, but they're very far, you know, they're spaced far apart. And I think these wildebeest come down and have a drink. They also move from areas of high feeding density to areas of low feeding density. And I think what happens is they arrive at a river thinking, ooh, this is a nice place to drink. And oh, look, the grass is green on the other side. And then they cross. And they do this while they're living in the Mara. It's not just a single event. It's not this mass sort of the river barrier, doom, doom, doom. It definitely isn't that. This barrier becomes apparent whenever they're here. And they will either cross or they won't cross at this particular point. And quite often you see wildebeest massing at a point like this, where they will congregate, and then pressure all of a sudden builds up, and then one will go, and that sort of creates a stream. We're back at main south camera now, and you can see that wildebeest are coming down across all the points I've ever seen. The far left-hand side, far right-hand side, in the just off center of your screen is a very common place for zebra to cross and lone wildebeest. And then obviously at main north we have them at all the crossing points as well, on the ridge, off the ridge, and where the hippo pool is. Very difficult. I would like to say that there's probably about 2,000 or 3,000 animals here at the moment. It's not the most we've ever seen. I think the biggest crossing we've ever seen the season so far has taken 45 minutes to cross. And we watched probably 6 or 7 crocodiles been taking all of them. Now, Anna Marie, you've just asked me, do crocodiles swallow or crush large bones first? Wow, Anna Marie, that's a good question. Let me think about that. I think that crocodiles will dismember carcasses and swallow chunks of meat whole, and then either regurgitate out or defecate out bones. I don't think that they crush bones like hyena specifically to get to marrow. They don't have any molars. They've just got sharp peg-like teeth, almost like canines, but their entire jaw. So they have very little crushing capacity, with the exception of the fact that crocodiles have got one of, if not the strongest bite force in the animal kingdom, and their back teeth will absolutely be able to crush some bones. While I keep a look at these crossings, you're quickly going to go over to James, who's got a hyena who's busy running.
Yes, indeed, a running hyena. We don't know where he's going, we don't know what he's doing, we don't know what he's thinking, or what he's singing. But he's not alone as he trots across, or lopes across this marshy area. He is in the company of warthogs. He's in the company of wildebeest. He's a waterbuck, but let's stay on the elephants. A little hog running past them. I think they were running that way when the hyena came past, and now they've decided, no, everything's safe, we can go back to where we were. and we're right about there now, but obviously on the other side of the bank. So it's onto these plains that those wildebeest were coming. The warthogs are being very naughty there. There's the little one, I think, being chased by Mum and told to come back. There we go. Look at her chasing the little thing. So naughty. And to be in all sorts of trouble. Oh, that's hilarious. I don't think I've ever seen that before. It's so funny to see the size of an elephant versus a warthog, isn't it? And just as astounding. Octogirl, I think you just asked the question, does an elephant's septum run the length of the trunk? There is I guess you could call it a form of a septum down the length of the trunk. It's certainly split into two nostrils, and therefore I guess it must be. And, oh, I see. Never mind, I've just spotted somebody walking across the plains here. I just want to see that he is not in any danger. No, he doesn't have a care in the world. He's sat on a rock, carving sticks. Of a stick. So yes, I think the middle of the trunk does have a septum, and for those of you who don't know what a septum is, it's the sort of cartilaginous bit in the middle of your nose. The reason I know that, of course, is that I've had to have mine straightened, not once but twice. Very painful operation, not to be recommended. But I would think you'll find that on an elephant, it's much obviously less rigid than ours, can bend both ways, left, at least, sideways and up and down. And I doubt there's anything like the same amount of cartilage as there is in ours. And you'll know that your septum, of course, becomes less and less rigid the closer you get to where your nostrils meet. That's so that you can turn your nose up at people and things. Sorry about our break-up in the picture there. Apparently the internet was what can be described in Rebecca's technical terms as a bit wobbly, but it's okay now. What a gorgeous scene. Apparently the internet here is still on its training wheels. Right, our next plan of action is going to be to make our way towards the Musiara gate to drop off James, our long-suffering Askari. That's not me. And then we're going to head across to our, I guess our breakfast stop. It's a place called Olshiki. Is that right? Olishiki. Alright, we're going to go across to Steph now again, Chief Mango. Apparently the wildebeest are not yet crossing, but they are thinking about it, and they will probably be doing that for the next 5 hours.
The wildebeest are definitely thinking about crossing. But how awesome was that swamp, James? It was just that, with those warthogs and that hyena, I don't know what it was doing on the other side there. Equally, I don't know what is happening with these wildebeest. They are obviously thirsty and coming down to drink, which is fairly common. We watch them coming down and massing on the side here quite often. To James and my frustration, quite often what happens is that they come down, they drink, and then they go away again, because at this particular crossing, just off on the left-hand side, there is a lot of hippo. And those hippo splash around, and you just saw one splashing there in the corner, splash around, and what happens is that the wildebeest get scared and move off. Now we have got some wildebeest both at main north crossing and at main south crossing. There's some zebra now as well. The zebra are quite often the ones that are in the water at first, and the zebra like crossing here on the right-hand side of the screen. Now, I haven't seen any crocodiles moving in the water, and quite often what happens is that as the wildebeest approach, crocodiles are sensitive to this to this movement. And you very often see crocodiles moving into a position where they can start to ambush wildebeest. You can see the cars starting to approach. Now, the Mara Triangle and the Greater Mara Conservancy is an open reserve, very similar to, if you've been watching Safari Live for a while, the Kruger National Park, where you can drive yourself around. You can also be driven around by a professional guide in their vehicle, so you can fly in, you don't need your own car. And obviously, this is a very important time for tourism in Kenya. And a lot of these safari operators offer these vehicles where you can come and enjoy the crossings live and in your own skin, basically. We do the next best thing. And I think we've got a bird's eye view of better crossing as well. So this is Main North again, about half a mile upstream. And these wildebeest are streaming away again. Isn't that absolutely amazing? Come down, not all of them drink, they just sort of follow one another. And then the main herd decides to move off. They didn't decide to cross today. They've gone back to whatever feeding grounds is on the other side. And that doesn't say that they're not going to come and cross here again. They might turn around right here and decide to cross right here. They might go to the next crossing. Quite often they just walk up and down the river for a bit and then all of a sudden dive into the water. Who knows what these wildebeest are doing, to be honest with you. It is a ones there moving away. Janice, you wanted to know how warm the water is. Janice, because of all the crocodiles, and you would have seen with James's picture just now, with all the crocodiles in this water, I have not even set a single toe in this water. I refuse to do so. I think it is the very best way of getting yourself eaten by something. But the ambient temperature here is between, say, 16 degrees and about 25 degrees centigrade. Which is very warm, and I would imagine that the water is not far colder than 16 to about 18 degrees centigrade, quite warm. It's a shallow river. You can see that the rocks below the surface are creating that rippling effect in the water, and even in these deep pools, you've got a lot of these fairly slow moving but shallow water, and I think that heats the water up. And so I would be surprised if the water was colder than 16 degrees. I'd also be surprised if it was warmer than 25 to 27 degrees. All right, and there they're moving, these wildebeest. So these back ones have now finished drinking. You've still got a few that are facing in this direction. That's what they're doing, coming down to drink. No crocodiles, which shows me that the water temperature is fairly cold this morning if no crocodiles are moving just yet. You saw that picture with James, all those crocodiles sunning themselves on the bank. There's some topi there. They're also a good precursor for movement. So, as this day progresses, topi, wildebeest, zebra all together in one place, we have the recipe and a warm day. They don't seem to cross on cold days. They seem to cross only on warm days. We've got the makings for a good crossing day today. Just have a look at the amount of wildebeest that are there. I don't think that we've got more than 10,000 wildebeest here. I think that there's probably closer to about 5,000, just less than 5,000. There's some safari cars coming into view again. Now, for those of you just joining the show, we are in Kenya right now. This is the world famous Mara River and the Greater Mara Conservancy. And what we're going to do, if you're new to the show, is something amazing. We're going to be sending you instantaneously 3,500 miles south to South Africa from Kenya to my friend Byron, who's thinking about some refreshment.
No, another cup of coffee was needed. It's a bit chilly this morning. We haven't had too much luck. Unfortunately, it sounds like the gremlins have not just been attacking us, but the Mara too, or the Mara FC, which is interesting. But we unfortunately didn't have any signal down at Chitwa. We're going to have to try sort that out. I've still been trying to bird. Now, just quickly, just want to clarify something, because I heard there was just a bit of confusion about the one bird. So I'm just going to use the book though, because actually both birds are on here. So we saw this Currichan button quail, that one over there. Sorry, that one there, the Currichan button quail. Now heard that some of you were saying the Currachin button quail and the common button quail is one and the same thing. That may be. I just tried to have a look, and I had a look on the app too. The app gives us old names as well as the new names, and I can't see it being called a common button quail. But I think the scientific names that you got were correct. It's Turnix sylvaticus. That's that over there. Can you see that? Oh, there we go. So that is right. The scientific name, if that's what you got, that is correct. But here is the common quail. You see, the common quail, just a little bit higher up, that is different. That is known as the common quail. That's Turnix. So that is different. But the Currachin button quail, if you got that scientific name, it's right. But there is a common quail, which is a different bird. So I think that might be where a little bit of the confusion is. But anyway, regardless of that, at least you can see the difference. And that's why we always say that's why it's good to know the scientific names of trees or sometimes birds or animals. It's difficult to learn all the scientific names of birds or mammals, but it is how you can then be sure of what you're identifying. You can say that's it. Doesn't matter what the name is. If that's a scientific name you've got, that's it. That doesn't change, which is good. But we did see the Currachin button quail. That was the one that we saw. When we got down to Chitwa, I did see another bird we needed, unfortunately. So Sebastian said, why don't we film it and then show you live that we saw it? But that won't count. It was a village weaver. It was a village weaver, but we'll see. We were going through. There's still some birds that we need to see, so we'll try our best and find them. But let's go across to Scott, who has got some large birds he would like to show you.
Well, yes, no guesses to which birds they will be, considering that Manu started off on the Carcass of a young wildebeest. These are some white-backed vultures that have fed themselves to a point where they cannot feed anymore. And if you just zoom in at the base of their neck, you'll see that's the perfect one. You'll see there's a massive bulge sticking out. And that is their crop. It's essentially like a pantry. I'm told they can store up to about 1 kilo to 1.5 kilos of meat just in there. So once their stomach is full, that is their next pantry that they fill up on. And who knows what would have happened to what looks to be, I'm guessing, a young wildebeest. I mean, we can, maybe not so young, because if we look right here, Manu, if we come back a little bit closer to the road, just between us and them, you can see a big pile of mulch. There we go. That is the rumen or stomach contents, and there's quite a lot of rumen there. So I'm guessing possibly a slightly bigger wildebeest that's been torn apart. And it's very fresh, so who knows which lions may have been responsible or which animal may have been responsible for killing it. Difficult to be certain, but they've already moved off. And the vultures are doing exactly what they are designed to do in this ecosystem. They're cleaning up all the leftovers that the larger carnivores cannot feed on. Very, very interesting. I love a crime scene in the morning. And we really are spoiled here. The amount of action that's unfolding and vultures on kills and just carnage really is quite something, and it's abnormally high. So if any of you are joining these safaris for the first few times, it's important that you realize that we are showcasing one of Africa's most incredible wilderness areas at the most peak time of its viewing potential. So we are getting absolutely spoiled rotten with incredible sightings, and it's almost easy to become blasé, especially for us out here who are doing it day in and day out. Sometimes you need to just slap yourself to realize how lucky we are to be documenting and witnessing all these interesting things that are unfolding. You can probably hear all the flies buzzing around. Buzz. Why don't you zoom in on this close one? There's quite a lot of flies. They've actually got a very impressive coloration there. It looks to be a jawbone lying next to this rumen. Oh, you can't hear the flies, sadly. Look at all of those flies. Metallic blue with the bright red head. And they too, they're like mini vultures. What the vultures can't get to, these guys are doing their bit cleaning up. So all a very, very important part of what goes down. It's not just the lions who are performing their special role in the ecosystem, but also these little critters. And I mean, those are really fancy outfits, I think. That'd make a great fancy dress if you could dress up like one of those. Big red head, or eyes, rather. Those are the eyes, which I guess are part of the head. Ginormous eyes. And what's also interesting is their funny mouth-like proboscis, which they dab into the moisture and the meat like a little straw. Awesome. Lara Moore, you'd like to know if all of these vultures are the white-backed vultures, and the best way to look is at their eyeballs. And yes, to me they do look like all to be white-backed, although one seems to be larger than the others. The 1, 2, 3, 4 are slightly smaller, and they don't have their kind of adult plumage yet. The Ripple's griffin vulture, which is the one that you would be able to confuse the white-backed vulture with, has a very distinctive white eye, or pale-colored eye, whereas these guys, the white-backed, have got dark eyes. Oh, take off. Let's see if the rest don't take off. Oh, that was just a mini takeoff. Often what they do, and what's really interesting, is you sometimes see them sitting on the ground, flat like chickens incubating an egg. They just get so full that they don't even bother flying off. Nothing can really creep up on them in these open plains. And, yeah, they kind of hunker down like chickens. Now, I'm sad to hear that Byron didn't manage to get that village weaver on the screen for you guys, and therefore cannot count it to his list, but he has found another bird, so off you go.
Yeah, it's unfortunately didn't get the village weaver, but got something else interesting. Now have a look at this. I'm just going to jump off the vehicle here and show you. Now this, I drove past and this stood out very, very clearly. This is fairly new. Now what this is a huge hole. Have a look at this massive hole that's been dug up fairly recently. I'd say within the last day or two, it looks like it, because we've driven past here a few times and I haven't seen. This is new. The soil's still very soft and you can see it's been disturbed. This is a big aardvark digging. It's a really, really large. I can see that it's also aardvark by the claw marks on the inside of this little hole. The claw marks of the aardvark, unfortunately, I don't think you can see it now, but they really do stand out. They're quite wide apart. There's probably a gap of about that amount between each claw, and they're very sharp. And you can see how this aardvark has dug this entire hole to try and get to termites, most likely. But it's deep. This is almost. Let me actually show you. Look how deep it is if I stick my leg in here. If I don't come out, then you know why. I've been attacked by something. But look at that. And you see how deep that is? It's incredibly deep. So up to about there on my leg. Some spiders in there. Oh dear. But that's just fascinating. Nice to see. It's something unique, something different. And I've never seen an aardvark, a live aardvark, here in the Sabi Sands. I've seen dead ones, unfortunately, that have been killed by predators, by leopard and lions. It was so Taylor is watching in the final control in the Mara, and she says I must be careful I don't fall all the way through to China through that hole. Thanks, Taylor. Taylor, did you hear about the southern boo-boo that we saw? So excited and we got to see that. But as I was saying, I've seen fresh aardvark tracks, I've seen fresh diggings, just never seen an aardvark. They're nocturnal, they're not something that you see very often, and they're very, very shy. So I think we're going to continue our birding search this morning, see if we can get another one or two before the end of drive. But let's head across to James, who's still driving around the Mara, and see how his morning is going.
Hello everybody, here we are again. I keep saying hello everybody, which I'm a bit sick and tired of saying. I'll try not to do it anymore. Anyway, what we're doing here is just having a look at some vultures. We've got white-backed, we've got marabou storks, we've got one or two leopard-faced as well, actually. I'm just trying to fix my brightness on my monitor because I can't actually see what you're looking at. Anyway, I'll figure it out eventually. And I don't know what they're eating. Obviously you can see the ribs there. And it looks, my original thought was it looks like the ribs of a hyena. Now the only reason I said that was because we have seen hyenas eating the carcasses of other hyenas here. And the ribs look relatively similar, thin but round and quite sort of tough looking, as opposed to the flat ones that you find on something like an antelope. Oh dear, storks getting a bit cross with each other. You can see why they are known as the world's ugliest bird. Certainly by me anyway. Oh, there's a Ruppel's griffin. I think that's the prince of vultures out here. They really are most beautiful indeed. Slightly bigger than the white-backed. You see those ribs there? They're just sort of rounded. They're not flat like a herbivore's. I wonder if this isn't a little carnivore that's died somehow. I could go in there and chase all the birds away, but I'm going to try not to do that. They might do that anyway when I drive past, because I have to go past there. Janice, you say the big ones walk like flamingos. I'm not sure they walk like flamingos, really. I can see what you mean, though. I guess it's just because they're so tall. They're so long. And you know, their legs will fight like that because they defecate and urinate on them. Having a bit of a fight there. And they do that in order to keep cool. Marvellous. And as I've said to you before, if we look at that stalk, you can see its ear. Can you see the ear there, just behind the eye? Very nice. And that ear, sorry, I'm actually talking nonsense. I'm afraid the night's caught up with me. What I meant was its nose, of course, and you can't see its nose. So what I was going to say is now meaningless. But that is very interesting to watch it. Gee whiz, look at that. It's really having a go. Laying down the law. This is quite a fresh carcass. There's a lot of blood around. And although it's bigger, the stork will struggle to get in amongst the bones like the vultures can with their hooked beaks. Gee, this is great. I love vultures. I think they're fantastic creatures. I'm always just a little bit sad at how few we seem to have left in South Africa. I feel like there are many missing. There we go. And one of the storks is even bigger than all the rest, which I think is quite impressive. Perhaps a male, although often with the birds it's the other way around. Righty. I think we're going to move on from here. Head towards the gate. And drop our long-suffering Ascari off. Before we do that, though, There's a bird coming down to land. Rebecca, you are still with us, are you? There we go. Isn't that cool? Alright, let's drive past. They might fly off, and we'll just see if we can't see what it was. They will come back if they do fly off. There's no shortage of food around here at the moment. Let's have a look there. A bit closer now, still can't tell what it is. Anyway, we'll spend another few minutes here and see if we can figure it out. In the meantime, I've been told to link to Steph, who's spouting, and we'll end the show. I don't know what that means.
I also don't know what that means, to be honest with you. What we have got, though, is this group of hippopotamus that are at cul-de-sac crossing and are now moving from the water, where they would have come back to in the early morning this morning in the dark, and are now deciding to come out onto this beach on the side of the Mara River and will start sunning themselves. Isn't this quite cool? Now, this whole pod of hippo will have 1 or 2 large bull hippo. The rest will be made up of female hippo and adolescents. And as you can see, they're obviously getting a lot of grass at the moment. These youngsters are playing with one another. Now, there's the strict order that hippo come out of the pools at, and they always do so quite slowly, except in this particular case where we have hippos sort of marching out of the water over here in a procession. They'll spend most of the day out in the sun. It's all got to do with temperature, of course. The hotter the sun, the shorter they spend sun tanning. The cooler it is, the longer they spend. Chastity, you wanted to know what is the craziest thing that I've seen at the river crossings. I would have to say that the first thing that comes to mind is this crossing, and we watched a mass drowning here was the craziest thing. I could not understand why wildebeest continued to throw themselves when it was quite obvious there was no escape route. So what happened when wildebeest came down from the left-hand side onto the beach that is just in the center of the screen, and then they crossed across this patch of water. And what happened is the current was fairly strong, and they washed up against these rocks. And between washing up against one another and the embankment, the wildebeest basically drowned against this massive embankment. It was quite sad. Anyway, the time has come for us to say goodbye for our scheduled broadcast. Thank you very much for joining us. Don't forget that this afternoon we're going to be joined by Noelle, who is on a interview drive with us today. So Byron will be backing her up, and Noelle will be hosting the drive. We're wishing her the best of luck for her interview. We'll catch you later. Thank you so much for watching and all your support, everybody. And we look forward to the Facebook Lives throughout the day.